Hello, everybody. Welcome along to the Championship Check-In podcast. What you're not going to see and what the universe is never going to see is my first attempt at doing this intro. Sam, explain to the listeners in football terms how bad that intro I just did was that no one's ever going to see.
No, it was all right. It was a decent build-up play and then squared to you probably about 7-8 yards from goal and just didn't get the purchase. Come off your heel, just squirm wide of the far post. It wasn't the worst thing I'd ever seen, but probably should have finished.
I mean, it's a great answer, and I think you're being very, very kind. So, we've had a sack-in today. Darren Moore is out of Huddersfield. We planned our running order, so we're going to pop that in later in the show. Strangely, Sam, we do actually still have 12 games, which is our normal amount we would like to talk about. 9 of those are in the FA Cup. So you need to select your Parkin's pick from this little lot. In the Cup, it was Bournemouth 5, Swansea 0, Bristol City 0, Forest 0. I'm only mentioning the games involving Championship teams. Sheffield Wednesday 1, Coventry 1, Ipswich 1, Maidstone 2, Leeds 1, Plymouth 1, Leicester 3, Birmingham 0, West Brom 0, Wolves 2. It was Watford 1, Southampton 1, Liverpool 5, Norwich 2. That's the 9 cup ties, Sam, that involve Championship teams. You had 3 Championship games on Saturday and Sunday. It was Millwall 1, Preston 1, Sunderland 3, Stoke 1, QPR 1, Huddersfield 1. Percolate all of that in your brain, Sam, and we'll go to Parkin's pick. Can you cobble something together from all of those 12 games?
Well, you've already given Maidstone a lovely mention. And if this was a National League South podcast, they would be front and centre. But we're going to shoehorn them in a little bit again because we're going to focus on Ipswich's defeat, the horrendous defeat, and what that's going to mean for them, I suppose, moving forward in their search for Premier League football.
And what I want to do as well, Sam, I want you to talk about the fact that the other two, so if we making the assumption Leicester are first position to lose it, and we're talking about a 3-way shootout for one automatic promotion place, we did actually get problems for Southampton and Leeds, as we'll discuss when we look at the fixture list as well, because both their games have gone to a replay. We'll go into that, but first of all, I mean, come on, did you watch it? It was the biggest freak show of a game you'll ever see, where you look at the attack momentum graph and it's like Maidstone went in the Ipswich half twice. I must say here, fair play, the ultimate FA Cup smash and grab raid. Brilliant, I get it, heroic, but surely, let me pitch it this way, it's a freak result that wasn't the worst performance in the world. There was something in the air, lightning in a bottle, and Ipswich will be able to come back from it. Surely, Sam.
I was actually in the Millwall press room having lasagna and potato wedges, double carbs, watching that play out. And you can't not enjoy it. It was very FA Cup-y, 3rd round, 4th round, the manner of the victory. Do you know what I mean? Like the higher position club just doing everything but not being able to score. Keeper performing heroics. Yeah, some brilliant last-ditch defending, but let's get it right. Ipswich should have won 10-2, shouldn't they? that first half, the ball clattering off the post and the bar. And I was a little, kind of preempting the headlines and the way the country was going to go mad. I am a little bit sick in my mouth when I was kind of anticipating that, just like, the FA Cup has lost quite a lot of the magic, but when those things happen, people just go to town on it, don't they? So I was a bit like, this is just going to run and run and run. However, it was amazing. It was amazing for Maidstone. Incredible achievement, brilliant for them, and the manager seemed like a thoroughly likable chap. But I'm not overly bothered. I think it's people like yourself and the people that have watched Ipswich over many, many a year that will be hurt for this, like the 9-0. That's probably followed you around, hasn't it? The 9-0 at Old Trafford and such like. So it's not great because, Ipswich got huge resources in comparison, and they got a good enough squad to be able to canter through that tie. But I don't see it being a massive issue. I had a little look at some of the fixtures in comparison to Southampton and Leeds, or Southampton in particular. So yeah, Southampton still got to play the other 4 in the top 5 away from home. So I wouldn't be too fearful about the road ahead for Ipswich, but it's how they respond now. 2 difficult games, Preston and West Bromwich Albion, the next 2 up. And if we're talking about Southampton, we know they've got those 2 gimmies, if I'm allowed to call them that, Rotherham and Huddersfield on the horizon. So we could be having this conversation in a fortnight's time, and Southampton could be in front of Ipswich. So it's how they bounce back, I would suggest, and going and getting a really exciting young forward to problem solve what has probably been the biggest issue, in my opinion, in the last month or so. It's not a bad way to get over that defeat.
Sam is referring to Ali Al-Hamadi, which we're going to talk about in just a second, Sam. Can I just get your take then? So if, as you and I both imagine, there's not going to be psychological wounds to this game that are then going to, manifest themselves over the next 6 weeks, what is your take on the fact that both Southampton and Leeds are going to go to a replay? So Southampton now have 5 consecutive 3-game weeks if they win. So because they'll have a replay in week 1 in midweek in February, and Cup round 5 is in week 4 in midweek. So they would literally go through the 4 weeks of February, all 3-game weeks, and the first week of Marches as well. Leeds, I'll say, that decision to move the Norwich game forward looks very smart now, because week 3 in February, they would have clear. This is assuming that they both win. But what is definitely happening for Leeds, and this is, I feel most sorry for their fans, given where Leeds is and where the Southwest is. In the space of 5 games, they go away to Plymouth twice, Swansea, and Bristol City. So, look, I'll get comments saying, "Oh, Ben, you're an Ipswich fan. You're trying to make a silver lining out of a dark cloud here." But in terms of fixture congestion, that February looks tough for Leeds and Southampton, more so than Ipswich, especially if either of them or both win their replays.
Yeah, back to back, isn't it? Bristol City and Plymouth in the next week or so for Leeds. What surprised me the most was looking at Leeds' team sheet, to be quite frank. And there you go. I was going to say I've done a pun. I haven't, have I? I was really surprised to see how strong they went, Leeds. So whether that will give Daniel Farke a little bit of food for thought ahead of the replay, we'll have to wait and see. I think the reality is, looking at Ipswich's team and looking at Southampton's team, it was a great opportunity to rotate. I'm sure Russell Martin will do that again in the cup replay. I think that, it's the bottom of the list of priorities, isn't it? As it stands, they've got to focus on the league, the way that they've been going, and he'll be able to give the fringe players an opportunity in that game. So I don't see it hindering too much. The travel, possibly, and we know Leeds' woes away from home. That's been the difference between them having the points return of Ipswich, Southampton, and maybe beyond that if they'd have sorted their away form out. So we'll have to wait and see how it affects them. Don't see it being a massive issue. I think that Leeds have got to use the squad more than they did at the weekend. Really surprised the lack of changes there. It looked like a Championship 11 that they put out, and they weren't able to get through. And the priorities now with an extra game will surely shift to making sure everyone's had a few minutes and everyone's had a bit of rest. But just to follow up on that Southampton point from earlier about the games they've got to face, they've only had 1 win away from home against teams in the top 14. I noticed
14?
Today. Yeah, which astonished me. I think it was at Hull. So, yeah, it's 19 points from possible 21 against teams below that. So they've been
There you go.
impeccable in the games against the lesser lights, and obviously a ridiculous force at St Mary's. But in the away games thus far against the top teams in the division, or the mediocre teams in the division, not been able to get great points. So, 4 games against the top 5, I think I said it was. That's That's quite a tough test.
Quickly then, round this out, Sam. So Ipswich have announced the signing of Ali Al-Hamadi. If you're not familiar, he was at Wimbledon in League Two. We think £1 million plus. We never know with fees being undisclosed. What role does a young 21 striker from League Two? What role does that player have coming into essentially a promotion race?
That's a good test for the character, isn't it? A test of his character. He plays with a lack of fear, I would suggest. He's kind of off the cuff. He's really exciting. I would say he's very similar to what I enjoyed about George Hurst early part of this season. I think it was one of the most important ingredients in that Ipswich side was having someone that could run down the middle, someone who was mobile. And I think this chap can definitely do that, run onto balls, but he's pretty good with his back to goal. He's pretty savvy, pretty clever, kind of knows the position well for someone so young, and he's incredibly exciting as well. So to wheel out kind of a thought process that I've had and maintained and carried with me for a long time now, I don't think there's a big gap between League Two and League One. So I think he's far too good for probably those two levels. So therefore, the natural step for him, or the natural level for him to be playing at right now, considering his form, is the Championship. So I don't see it as a massive gamble. I think the majority of the teams in the Championship would have looked at him and probably would have spoken to Wimbledon about his availability, what it was going to cost. Ipswich have taken the plunge. I think he's a really good player. I think he's a very, very good player, and I think he is going to bring a lot of those characteristics that has been lacking without Hurst. I'd probably say, I don't know. I don't think Hurst is as dominant, and this is rich coming from me. The Ipswich fans will be shouting at the screen, but I don't think Hurst is particularly dominant aerially, and I think that would be the case for Al-Hamadi as well.
But then, as a result, they don't put the ball up
to him
to win in the air. So yeah, that's something that's mitigated for that way.
Balls down the side, Al-Hamadi, brilliant, sharp, quick with and without the ball. You know, one of those. Again, the old cliche, looks rapid when he's travelling with the ball. Can take it into feet and wriggle away from people. He's really exciting, and I know they loved him at Wimbledon, and I know they were absolutely gutted with the prospect of having to let him go. But obviously, the money was too much for the club to turn down. So, really excited to see how it goes. And when you look at all the options across the divisions right now, I think he's right at the top of the list. They were looking at Gallagher, weren't they, from Blackburn?
Think they still are.
Are they? Well, yeah, perfect. Go and do it if you can get the two of them. But with the utmost respect, even though Gallagher's he's probably played in the Premier League, Gallagher, and he's played hundreds of games in the Championship, in terms of the age and what they can become, and probably the goal threat now, Al-Hamadi every day in the week.
There you go. Let's round this out by losing with humility and saying congratulations to Maidstone, though, because that really was the giant story of the weekend. But hopefully, what Sam has said may give Ipswich fans a bit more confidence as they all try and forget Saturday. Let's move on to Worldie of the Week. Right, this is not a gimmick. We genuinely haven't decided here. So, Sam, I've got 5 FA Cup goals for you, and you're going to decide on the spot Worldie of the Week, okay?
Yeah.
So, we've got Victor Torp, the torpedo for Coventry at Sheffield Wednesday. Just to quickly say, goal of the week last week, Worldie of the Week, was scored by Coventry at Sheffield Wednesday, wasn't it, by Ben Sheaf? Jaden Anthony, a dribble in off the left and a curler for Leeds. Yunus Akyung, a rising shot for Leicester in their win over Birmingham. Really clever goal by Stuart Armstrong. Turn inside, gives everybody the eyes, whips it in the other corner. And Borja, Sainz for Norwich, who got as close to the Anfield goal as he could and hit it as hard as he could, and he smashed it in from distance. What are your takes, Sam? Maybe give us an honourable mention before you decide your winner.
I think really difficult. this week. I think there was some brilliant 5 goals you just reeled off there. Honourable mention for a further one for Science, because that's Van Dijk that he's up against there.
Wow.
And I think there was only that yard of goal that he could get it in terms of where the goalkeeper's outstretched left arm was and the post. So that was a brilliant strike. Torps I really liked as well. Quite an unusual technique. I would say a bit of a dipper, cut across it as well. Nice goal. I could go through all of them. The Armstrong one, he scored a brilliant. I haven't actually had an opportunity to look this up yet, but I think Stuart Armstrong, apologies to Southampton fans, but I think he scored a Trivella in the 4th round a few years ago that people were going wild for. In the lead up to this game, when I heard a discussion about best 4th round goals ever. So I think he's got previous. So for that reason, he's not going to get it. Jaden Anthony, however, poignant moment, lost his mum. I believe the previous week or a couple of weeks ago.
He turned up for work the same day. He was on the bench for Leeds, bless him. Yeah.
That's, so tough. So tough. So, I mean, it's not a poignant reason that I'm giving it to him. It's the best goal. It's the best goal. So considering what he's been through, it's the hardest to execute. And you consider he's definitely gone past 2. He's gone through the middle of 2, who can contain Morgan Whittaker's with a very forwards attempt at making a tackle, just kind of stuck out a leg, and he bypassed those 2. And then I love finishes like that. A bit of a signature of his, Anthony, actually, getting that whip and the pace on it, right-footed, coming in from the left-hand side. Brilliant goal. And, real tough few days for him. So massive credit to getting out there in the first place, when everyone would have completely understood if you wanted to get as far away from football as possible. But some people take solace, and he's gone out there and he scored an amazing goal.
I don't know about you. I'm the same. I want the distraction to, you know, it's not that it's going to be nicer thoughts, going to work or whatever you do, but it's not having to think about the horrible thoughts. So they're human beings, football players, and I think sometimes supporters forget that, don't they? So good shout, Sam. Jaden Anthony is our Worldie of the week, and we'll move straight on to a bit of an iffy afternoon at the Hawthorns. This wasn't a good look, Sam, was it, at all? So if you haven't seen it, West Brom v Wolves. It's a Black Country derby. A lot of people pointed out to me it hasn't happened for a long time, which is a key ingredient, I think.
12 years with fans, I think. So there was one
Really?
maybe during the pandemic. So it's been 12 years since the sets of supporters have been in the stadium.
Yeah, there you go. Police had moved it to 11:45 a.m. so people try not to get into the pubs. I do then understand if you're the owner of a pub and the most money you make all week is before West Brom play at home, that you still want to open early and try and that's your business. I get that. Wolves go 1-0 up in the first half. What we've got, Sam, is normally that away end at West Brom split in half, isn't it? You get half the away fans over to one side and then some pretty noisy home fans actually in the other side of it.
Yeah.
So they've all been rehoused somewhere in the stadium. And we then just get the imperfect, horrible storm, don't we? It goes 2-0 late in the game. And what we are led to believe is that Wolves fans in the home stand celebrate the second goal. And then it just all kicks off. So we get people attacking those Wolves fans. And I think there's just a bit of a thing goes around the stadium of just unrest, and there's people invading from other areas. And I don't want to be pointing any fingers. Chief Inspector Tim Robinson from the Football Force Department of the Police. What we saw yesterday was completely unacceptable. Violence directed at both fans and officers, which sadly led to the suspension of the game. It stopped for half hour. Sam, no football fan wants to see that. Number of officers have been injured. We have already started the process of reviewing evidence including body-worn video and CCTV, to ensure we identify and arrest all of those involved over the coming weeks. Before you give your take, Sam, it's very easy for us to sit here and be pious and blame these people and that people and this people, but you know the rules, don't you? It says when you go in the home stand, home supporters only. It's literally printed on your ticket, home supporters only. I get some grief because I go in and sit on the halfway when I'm watching Ipswich. But by God, do I behave myself. No colours, no noise from me, complete respect to everybody around. That said, you can't attack anybody. Whatever they do, you can't go around attacking people, can you? So just a rubbish situation that looks very bad on an EFL team. I've waffled, Sam. What's your take on the events and how?
No, definitely it happens though, doesn't it? You know, when people sit in the wrong end or whatever, you just have to, you know, if that circumstance becomes your reality, you just got to, just as you say, you just got to get through the game, haven't you? And keep a low profile. So it's absolute stupidity to celebrate, to make a racket or whatever when Wolves have scored. There's the argument as to whether they should be in there in the first place, but I think it happens. I don't know how you're going to stop that, you know, across the board. And I think you're bang on. It sounded like there was other incidents across the ground. I
think it just spreads when things go south, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it gave people probably the license to think that they could go and get involved and what have you. So, yeah, awful to see. I kind of had a horse in the race because don't ask me why, but my nephew's a Wolves fan and he didn't want to come to QPR Huddersfield yesterday because he wanted to plot up in front of the TV and watch the game. And what kind of message is that sending across to a young lad who's just starting to get into football and probably, well, he's been speaking to me about going up to Molineux and going to games and what have you. So, yeah, pretty sour day really when I'm receiving messages from my sister saying that game's being called off. He's gutted he didn't go to Rangers with you. So, yeah, really bad. I don't know what the answer is. I think we've spoken about these things so often. It's a problem in this country that goes back 50, 60 years, isn't it, with football violence? There isn't going to be an answer. You ban them from the stadium. There's going to be the old cliche. There's going to be people getting a knock on the door today or tomorrow from the body cameras or whatever you said. And I suppose you threaten them, the authorities, with banning the supporters from the stadium. And I know that affects everyone, and I don't know what the legality of it is from the FA or from the EFL or whatever, but you know, they're the type of measures that would make people think twice, I would presume. And then after that, you talk about, you know, I'm not talking about these two clubs, but if the severity of it snowballed and one club was guilty time and time again, then you take points off them. And again, that people would say, "Oh, what? You're mad." But you know, we've seen some incidents in the last few weeks, and people would say, "Oh, it's only one or two. It's only one bloke at Sheffield Wednesday who had a go at Casey Palmer. So what? You know, don't let any supporters go. People will think twice about it." Again, I think that has a huge knock-on effect because the amount of money a club would lose, and I'm not across the legality of it, but I suppose what I'm trying to say is you have to come down on these clubs hard, otherwise it will continue to happen and happen and happen.
And we should say, on behalf of both of us, 99.99% of the Wolves fans and the West Brom fans in that stadium probably all behaved themselves. But that's all it takes in a, you know, absolute
You should be able to behave yourself in the ground, though, right? Or the authorities should be able to get hold of that situation. But as I said, you know, if one or two supporters were in the wrong end, you know, I've seen it when I've been playing, when I've been supporting. That's always liable to happen. It happens at most grounds still. You just got to have your wits about you, haven't you? You've got to be more savvy if you find yourself in the wrong end, unless you're there to incite violence. You just got to, as you do, Ben, you've got to show the respect, haven't you? If you're in a place that you ultimately shouldn't be having your ticket.
Exactly. There you go. Unsightly. Don't really want to talk about it anymore, Sam. So we're going to move ourselves on to our meltdown moment. Wow. What about this? So 1:52 p.m. So 8 minutes before teams were announced, Sam. And you can tell me your thought on that specific timing. Sunderland tweeted and released on their website a statement about their number 10, a sort of attacking midfielder, Alex Pritchard, that said the following, Sam. On Friday morning, Alex Pritchard informed the club that he was no longer available for selection, and he subsequently withdrew from today's matchday squad. The midfielder also expressed his desire to leave Sunderland with immediate effect. The club will be making no further comment at this moment in time. Now, you're going to have to stand up for footballers here, Sam, because I'm a civilian and you're a footballer. And all the civilian people are going to be saying, Sam, if I just refuse to show up to work, not only do I not get paid, but I'm not going to get a job elsewhere, or a reference or anything like that. What on earth do you make of this from Alex Pritchard?
Yeah, a bit surprised, kind of at the stage of his career that he's at. You'd think this type of thing possibly would happen in your earlier years when you're ill-advised or you're a little bit spontaneous, a little bit emotional. I've probably been guilty of kind of getting towards that stage, but never probably taking the plunge. I wouldn't have been brave enough. And ultimately, there's probably something inside me that says, do you know what? While you're still here, and this is probably something that was told to me by a coach when I was younger, while you're still at a club or whatever, every time you step over the white line, you never know who's going to be watching. That was my kind of mindset. Try and, dedicate yourself as best as you can and try to always be a good example. So I would say, in my opinion, I'd probably say he's maybe got this one slightly wrong. That said, it sounds like in the summer, this could have been resolved last summer, whether it was, I don't know, a year's extension with the possibility of a...
Is that the issue? Is it a contract thing?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So I think he had the opportunity to move in the summer or whatever, and he's not been happy with what's on the table, if there is something on the table. So I think he's reached this stage where obviously various suitors are offering him the opportunity of a longer contract and better salary. And I wouldn't say it's turned his head. It's the reality of the situation when you're an experienced player. I suppose it's a bit like Chelsea when they stopped. I haven't got Alex Pritchard's date of birth in front of me, but I would suggest he's the tail end of his 20s or his early 30s. Is he not? And a bit like them when they stopped offering the lads that were the wrong side of 30 longer than 1 year. So it's probably a bit of a similar mindset to that going on at Sunderland at the moment, given the youth of their squad. And the reality is there'll be plenty of teams across the country that will give him 2 or 3 years. Probably Birmingham City being the obvious one with Tony Mowbray being the manager. So I think it's that going on. And I suppose the worry of injury probably comes into it. He's probably thinking, well, am I going to go and, give 100% for this lot who aren't going to give me that extra 2 or 3 grand a week or whatever he's thinking that he warrants. If there's an opportunity for me to move and safeguard my family's future for the next 2 or 3 years. So difficult one, but yeah, it wouldn't have been for me, but we don't know the conversation. That's the other thing. We don't know how bad a fallout it's been, how much of a mess it's caused over the last few days. He could have had a Barney. We don't know. I think the Sunderland fans have absolutely been talking about his body language the last couple of games. I think at Portman Road, he had a bit of an exchange with
didn't
Nick
he?
Beale.
Yeah, when he got subbed off. That's a great point.
So there you go. So something's not been quite right there. So maybe it's just been on the
just
brink.
Quickly, Sam, on how Sunderland handled it. Was there I suppose you can argue, well, if they're telling the truth of what happened and people are going to want to know why he's not in the matchday squad, would there have been a less incendiary way of dealing with this? Could it have been swept under the carpet, or is that not incumbent on them to do that, given he's just essentially refusing to go to work?
I don't know. I don't know what's your opinion. I suppose stopping the gossip on the match day would be, one of the reasons
for the players that are playing. Yeah.
Stopping the questions that inevitably would have come afterwards from the press, stopping the conversations around the ground amongst the supporters. But I don't know. Do you think they've thrown him under the bus a little bit with that statement and said, "Oh, that's him. That's what he's done. Nothing to do with us." Gov.
Well, whether you think they've thrown him under the bus or not, they could have not done it that way, could they? And again, I'm sure we'll get comments saying, no, if he's behaving in that manner and they're telling the truth. But Sam, in terms of management and soft people skills and working with people, that sometimes you don't just blurt out the truth. You manage the situation. And I don't know, that felt more like a Monday morning at 9 a.m. tweet than a 10 minutes before kickoff. But they won the game 3-1, didn't they? So it worked out. Listen,
he seems Mick Beale seems to like Bellingham, doesn't he? In one of those advanced midfield positions or as a number 10. And I think Ekwa got a little bit more involved in the attacking play at the weekend as well. So it's where he fits currently, I suppose. He's been a really good player for Sunderland, though, hasn't he? When you think of how good he was.
Promotion as well, yeah.
Think about how good he was kind of his first little spells away from, I think he come for at Tottenham, didn't he? I think everyone had enormous high hopes for him, and he lost his way a little bit a few years ago, definitely. So he's definitely regained his kind of star quality and his ability to deliver and score the odd spectacular goal. So I'm sure he's going to get himself a nice move. But yeah, shame, 100% a shame, because he always struck me as someone that the fans really took to up there.
Yeah, amen. And I think Sam made the most key comment. The only objective facts we know are the statement we've seen and the fact that he wasn't there. We don't know what the conversations were or the fallout. But hey, we're here to give our views on what we know, and that is what we've done. Sam, we're about to give our views on what is going to be going ahead in the week coming up. So this portion of the show, as ever, is brought to you by Match Bingo, and we thank them greatly for their help with our broadcast. And I need to find the fixtures for round 29. And Sam, you need to find us a mouthwatering matchup out of one of these. Friday night, Bristol City Leeds, the first of those many trips down to the southwest for the poor Leeds fans. Blackburn QPR. It is Huddersfield Sheffield Wednesday, Hull Millwall, Norwich Coventry, Preston Ipswich, Rotherham Saints, Stoke Leicester, Swans Plymouth, Watford Cardiff, West Brom Birmingham, another sort of derby match in that part of the world. And then on Sunday, it is Middlesbrough versus Sunderland. Sam, those are the fixtures. Have yourself a little think. And I need you to come back to me with a mouthwatering matchup. Basically, are you going for the top or the bottom of the table?
I've kind of forgotten, but I'm just going to blurt out Huddersfield Sheffield Wednesday, and you just nod if I'm correct.
I am nodding along.
Yes,
that we need to also
somewhere.
Need to talk about the elephant in the room, and that elephant is obviously the sacking of Darren Moore for the second time. He got sacked in June from Sheffield Wednesday, which was maybe a bit more of a shock than this one, Sam. The trend was not good. The stats say 23 games in charge, 20 points. So under the 1 point per game. But remember, Neil Warnock did pad that points total at the start of the season. So if they went a point per game for the rest of the season, they'd land on 45, which we think would be right on the edges of either just surviving or just going down. But talk to me about Darren Moore and the importance of this game against Wednesday.
Well, yeah, it's a huge game, irrelevant to who's the manager. As I sit here today, I've probably got a little bit of sympathy with him because of the performance yesterday. I thought that was a wretched game.
Did you go?
Yeah, I went. Well, I thought Millwall 1, Preston 1 was going to be the low light of my weekend until I went there yesterday. I thought QPR were absolutely abysmal. And I know I'm really not going to have the platform to talk about them today, but I thought it was so error-stricken. I thought it was a dreadful game. However, I thought Huddersfield was slightly better in terms of a bit of a game plan. I think just probably players that knew their roles and were slightly more polished in their execution yesterday looked a little bit more threatening. Very little on either goal. But I still looked at 2 or 3 of the Huddersfield lads, probably the goalkeeper, probably the centre-half, Hellick, probably Sorba Thomas, Redoni, and thought, they're getting QPR's team. You know, that was my sense kind of walking away. So he's probably been, this isn't a product of yesterday. It's probably a product of, yes, the 23 games, but the last 3, I would say, Ben, where the chairman's been continually vocal after
Would you like
games.
to hear a quote? Would you like to
Go
hear
on.
a quote quickly, Sam? So this is tweeted after the game from Kevin Nagel's Twitter. What a disappointing ending! 3 exclamation points. That was tough to watch the last 5 minutes. Players battled. We should have won again instead of hanging on for a draw after dominating much of the match. So you're dead right.
That was tough for him. I had a 3-year-old with me. And you know what I'm going to say? Obviously, he saw the Huddersfield goal go in. Explained to him, Huddersfield will score, blah, 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 blah. Right, let's get off, beat the traffic. Walking down Ellerslie Road, hear the cheer. I said, QPR have scored, Sid. Like that. And I mean, what an introduction. You should never leave a game early. But, I make the odd exception. If you're with a 3-year-old, he's asked me 2,783 questions during the previous 90 minutes. But bless him, didn't even see the goal. So, I've lost my chain of thought. Basically, Plymouth, Blackburn, QPR, they're your 3 games. To take 3 points from that when the chairman's essentially putting pressure on you in the press, out there in the public domain, I think it was must win for them yesterday. Despite me thinking they were slightly better, this is a product probably of the lack of points over the last 3 games. The amount of games that remain, and the appointment of a manager who, in this owner's eyes and words and terminology, was an attack-minded manager who he was going to back in the window, which he's done to a degree, and they were going to get some goals and some better football. And it hasn't transpired. And to be honest, I don't think they've covered themselves in glory either, because they didn't do the due diligence. For my money, Darren Moore put on a brilliant performance in that playoff campaign at the back end of last season, albeit they got lucky in the final, but the semi-final, the second leg in particular, you couldn't not admire his motivational technique, his manner throughout that, and the performance at Hillsborough. And across the course of that season, there were some brilliant victories, especially at Hillsborough, and some of the football was great, but it's not particularly attack-minded. They were a superior squad to everyone else in League One. So I don't think that Darren Moore is a particularly attack-minded manager, and I don't think if that's what the owner's after, he got this decision right. So
there's a
no
quote
surprise.
Quote from the chief exec talking about attacking football in the statement. So if he's not saying it, his subordinate is saying it. Do you like anybody for the job? I mean, we always mention your mate John Eustace and Gary Rowett, but they're pragmatic managers who will make you hard to beat. I don't know whether that's what they want, is it?
It has to be about survival now, doesn't it?
Well, you think?
Yeah. He's brought in Radulovic, Healy, right, and Matos, who's played in the central midfield, and I thought he was a little bit, more attack-minded than that. Him and Hogg were okay yesterday. Again, Hogg's another one I look at. I know he's not, brilliantly creative or creative at all, but he knows the position. And again, I look at QPR's midfield yesterday. It's woeful. It's woeful. I mean, me and my brother have been saying it for years about the lack of different type of profile to Hogg. Granted, the lack of quality in the midfield at Rangers. Honestly, someone who can see a pass. I can't remember the last time they had a gifted ball player midfielder. Probably going back to Ali Forlin or whatever. So, again, I digress. But I don't know. I don't know from here. I think in that opportunity for them to change, was obviously a few months ago. And that's when I thought you're going to get someone probably some tactical genius from somewhere or a bit of a left field appointment that they could really grow with. And yeah, Darren Moore, you would say, is comes with a decent pedigree, but he's not someone I didn't think that's brilliantly with his in-game management, brilliant tactically, and someone who's going to really encourage the flair players to express themselves. So I think they got that one wrong. Right now, I think you have to side with someone who's been in this predicament before and go with probably an experienced manager to get them out of trouble this season, and then maybe change in the summer. But those things normally get rewarded, don't they? You normally bring in someone now, they keep you in the division, but then all of a sudden they say, we'll give you another 12 months, give you another 18 months.
And Sam, one thing we don't like is 3 managers in one season. It's going to be 2 seasons in a row now for Huddersfield with 3 managers in one season. We'll see who goes in there. And we're going to see about one of the stars of the division, maybe the star of the division in Player to Watch. So lots of national press links as the window shuts down, quiet window actually, talking about Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, who is maybe pound for pound and for sort of potential transfer value, proximity to the England squad, games played in the Premier League, etc. Possibly the number 1 player in the Championship if you're, a club of the size of the ones that have been linked with signing him. The question I would ask, look, 25 years old, Sam, he's going to get 10 goals and 10 assists. He's already got 9 and 9. Majority of games played, even down to being a left-footed Englishman. Everything about him smacks of high transfer fee, doesn't it? Why on earth would you sell if you were Leicester in this position when, one, he's your best player and your highest value asset, and 2, you've lost Wilfred Ndidi for, we think, a fair amount of time? Should it be madness unless they get a king's ransom for Leicester to sell Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall?
I think I was reading on Twitter yesterday about incredible money being banded around for Callum O'Hare as well. So I know different scenarios here. This is out of my pay grade or over my pay grade, if that's the right terminology. I'm not an expert on football finances, but this, I'm a little bit across it in terms of Chelsea and some of the dealings that they've done over the last few years. And I would suggest this is, something that's a business decision if it was to happen, because he's a local lad, isn't he? You would see very little reason for him to be leaving now, especially to a team like Brighton, who's been the team most closely linked, because there's a lot of similarities between the two sides, I would say, and even in the way that they play in blue and white and the size of the stadium, the look of the stadium, there's not too much disparity between the two sides, I don't suggest, other than, Brighton are doing incredibly well, got a great model, producing players, signing brilliant players, but I wouldn't see it as a huge career jump for Dewsbury-Hall. I think at the moment, if you're looking at Maresca taking them to promotion, then there's a strong argument to say that they'll absolutely be all right in the Premier League next year. So very, very strange. So I think coming back to it would be a business decision based on finances and probably financial fair play. But at this stage, given Ndidi's absence, given the lack of other options and how paramount those 2 number 8s have been to their success, it would be a massive surprise. And again, like to double down on what I said last week after the Ipswich game, I think that really cemented in me, despite their last 20 minutes, just how good Ipswich, how good Leicester are in terms of a Championship team in comparison to what we've seen the last 5-10 years.
And if I can add, Sam, how vital he is to them, because he clearly wasn't fit and he was out on his feet by the end, but they still went with him from the start in a sort of promotion head-to-head, didn't they? Yeah,
and I've not seen him live probably since maybe early winter, when he had a bit of a indifferent spell, and the manager, didn't he say, he needs to the manager said he needs to let go of the emotional attachment to the club and the area and just play.
We've heard this narrative a lot, haven't we? Yeah.
He can't carry us all by himself and all that type thing. And he left them out for a few games. And since he's been back in, he's been outstanding. A friend of mine who I would imagine doesn't watch a lot of Championship football said that he's a lovely pickpocketer, which I thought was a nice phrase, in terms of someone that starts the press and nicks the ball off opponents. And when he's on the ball, he's a dream, isn't he? Even the mentality, the look of him with the roll down socks, lovely left foot, very laid back, looks like he's in a training session, basically, doesn't he? So he looks like a top player. I've really enjoyed watching him this season. So hopefully it's not true, because it'd be lovely for him to be centre stage if Leicester are to be lifting a trophy.
We'll keep an eye on it with just a couple of days more left in the transfer window, and only a couple of things more on this podcast to do, Sam, because it's question time. Right, are you ready to play the week that was, Sam? I think you're
just picking up my pen.
It's like 15-11 or something. You're winning by now. I think you're a few clear, but a man who will know is our mate Fev, who helps us out with this. Fev's Football Analytics. I think it's at Fev's Football on Twitter. Give him a follow if you enjoy the podcast and you enjoy this segment as well. He's a great help. I'm going to ask you the question I ask you every week, Sam. Would you like to ask or answer first?
I'll ask you if that's okay.
That is okay.
Okay, mate. You have 5 players who scored in the FA Cup this weekend whose surname ended in O. Ends in O. I'm looking for the 5 players who scored in the FA Cup this weekend.
And they're not necessarily Championship players?
Across the board, my friend.
So, oh man, I'm going to suck at this. Right. Who scored for Leicester? Action? No. Vardy? No. Oh, this could be a long time, couldn't it? Trying to think of the Ipswich game. Sarmiento.
1.
Yes. God, Liverpool. Who scored for Liverpool? Sainz for Norwich, Gibson for Norwich. Van Dijk, Jota. What's that Dutch fella called who scored at the end? Does his name end in O? Is there a Liverpool player on it?
No, afraid not.
Torp, Sheffield. Who scored for Wednesday at the end of the game? Oh, I can't think. I always freeze when I'm on the spot, don't I?
I'm sure I know that.
What other fixtures were there, Sam? What was Stuart Armstrong? Matthias Martin scored for Watford, so neither of them. Jadon Anthony scored for Leeds. Adam Randell scored for Plymouth. Who scored for Wolves in the troublesome game? Pedro Neto.
Correct.
Thank you. Who scored the second goal? Was it Matthias Cunha? So that's not an O.
I think I'm going to have to draw this to a close, mate. I'll give you
3?
another. Sorry?
So I've got 3, yeah?
You got 2, Sarmiento and Neto.
Oh, man. Okay, I suck.
There's one glaring omission. All right, I'm going to put you out of your misery. You can have 2 because I won't get any. João Pedro got a hat-trick, did he not? Did he get 4?
Oh, on Thursday or Friday for...
No, it was Saturday, wasn't it? They won at Sheffield United, didn't they? And then Mainu...
He's got a double barrel name that both end in O as well, João Pedro, hasn't he? There you go. Mainu for Man United. Did Garnacho score for Man United as well?
No, he didn't. He missed a couple. But the one you would never have got was Mikalenko scored an own goal against Luton for Everton.
Oh, brutal. Okay, so 2. So the bar is not particularly high. Sam, you have got here, and Fev supports Bristol City, so you're going to need some help with this. Can you name the 3 ex-Bristol City players who scored in the FA Cup this weekend and the 2 ex-Bristol City players who managed winning sides this weekend. That's really hard.
Goodness me. Ex-Bristol City players scoring in the FA Cup.
Can I give you a clue? 2 of them were in one game.
Oh, man.
And it was early in the proceedings.
Not sure I'll have anything here.
I'll give you a clue on the other as well. One of the goal scorers scored in a game you've just mentioned an own goal from.
Corley Woodrow.
1.
I'm going to need some help, I reckon.
Okay, one of the goal scorers shares a name with the Match of the Day presenter from the Ipswich Maidstone game. Exactly the same name.
Alex Scott.
Alex Scott. There you go. There's 2.
Was there another one in that game?
If you've been listening to the clues carefully, you may or may not know that. Yes. Can I try and move you on to the managers? So 2 ex-Bristol City players, 1 as managers. And I would argue in the 2 most newsworthy games of the weekend.
Elikobi have a loan spell there or something?
Elikobi, you've won it. And what was the other most newsworthy game that we talked about?
Gary O'Neill.
Well done. So the only one you missed, actually, Sam, was Lloyd Kelly. Scored for Bournemouth, the former Bristol City left back. But well played. I'm going to give you the win there. Your ex-Bristol City players beat my O's. And that will do us for this episode of the Championship Check-In. Get involved in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. Give us a 5-star review if you're listening on audio. And by God, join us for the predictions that are going to be out on Tuesday or Wednesday or sometime. Say goodbye, Sam.
Thank you for watching. See you next week.